broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, welcome to the weekly Noyantis Usergroup meeting. Today is the 18th of November 2019. Myself and John are your hosts. As always, with each of our webinars, if you've got any ideas or problems or suggestions, or just want to chat through some things, then feel free to drop us a message, and we will get the mics opened accordingly. Now, we normally start with the usual updates and so on, so we'll do that, but there aren't any. There's plenty in update, but there's nothing been released in the last week or so. So that was easy enough cover. Do need to give a blatant plug to the upcoming CIDC event next April. So it is CIDC 2020 in South Africa, in Cape Town. But of course, it's available online as well. So actively trying to promote the event, both obviously attendees in person. I know I'll be there where we're holding some training. John and Mary, you're travelling across, so I believe. Myself, Wendy could be there, and Bruce and the rest of the Cape Soft gang will be there. So plus, I think there's already some. Who's coming? So there's already some international presenters lined up as well, so you can see here. So it's basically it's a 4-day event, 2 days of training, Noyantis training, Cape Soft training, and there will be 1 day of each. Well, basically the time of 1 day of each, but the format of that training is still being finalised. Maybe Cape Soft AM, Noyantis PM, something like that, in the morning and then in the afternoon. So yeah, we're playing around with a couple of ideas on that, and then 2 days of the actual conference itself. So it does look to be a pretty good event. Okay, so we've already got some questions for today. I'll just open up the questions, but we've got a couple which I promised we'd already cover as well. So there's no questions coming from the audience yet, so we'll keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, we basically promised Lisa during Friday, the start of Friday's webinar, that we would cover a report control, and basically really back to basics, adding a report control, but the latest version of it, which of course includes the file loading, and the file/view loading, if you will. So let's take a look at that. So if we take a look, I'm just going to use a sample application that we've got in the past. Let's take a quick compile of that. I think we've got a couple of other questions as well. I think the question just coming on command bar, so we'll look at that after this. But we also had a suggestion via the news groups, again to do with the report control and to do with delaying the loading of the data. So got an idea on that, so we can talk through at least how it's going to be done, if nothing else today. Okay, so what we'll actually do, we'll recreate this, which is nothing more than basically a report control for a list of. Looks like a list of customers. Yeah, and it's an update form. And we'll cover each of the steps along the way. So let's give ourselves a menu option, and then we'll go from there. And just for Lisa, we're actually going to call this button Lisa, and then we'll send it through to her. Actually, that is a bit vague, I've got to admit. We'll just call it customers. Okay, so I think we all know that you have to have the global extension added to your application. So ensure you've got that added. Set up your registration, be it Reg3Com or registered with Windows, or maybe it's already registered. And the code drop version. Okay, so let's create ourselves a window. Okay, something like so. Customers. Get rid of that grey. That's a bit plain nowadays. And give ourselves a close button. Okie dokie. Something along the lines of that. Keep meaning to change my basic, the default option. Okay, a quick compile. Nothing really exciting at the moment, but at least we'll get to see exactly what we do. Right, we've got a a blank screen. So we're going to add a report control. We'll slow down here a bit and we'll cover the exact options, because basically it came about. Lisa wanted to know if we had the old videos from, well, yesteryear really, looking at the report control and adding it afresh. Well, they're probably not the best source now. I'm still digging them out, and I'll get them on the YouTube channel, but they're probably not the best source because, like, as all of the products, they've changed over time. And of course, this is no different. So we're going to cover, obviously, the very latest report control and the way that I would suggest that you do it. And then we'll also, I mentioned a change to the loading mechanism. A delayed load, which somebody has suggested, and we'll see how I plan to tie that into this. Right. First off, then, if we've added our global extension, we would get a report control option here on the left. Now, because there's not currently any report controls on the window, you only get the option to add the report control and nothing else. So there's no basically additional buttons available yet. So we'll keep an eye on this area. So there's only report control. I've just noticed. Sorry, I've just noticed the font on the window. I could have swore I just changed that. Or did I just do it on the button? Sorry, I did it on just the button. That's better. Okay. So yeah, so onto our report control. Nothing on the screen here, so we're just going to add our report control afresh. Place it on the window. Okay. We'll go there, give ourselves a bit of room. We're going to leave a bit of room because we are going to include a field picker just for completeness. Okay, so there's a report control. We're going to base it on the customer. So personally, I would like to give it some name so I can see it's RC customers. So it's a report control and it's based upon the customer table, or it will be shortly. Its class name. Oh, Chloe is doing its doing its magic. 1 second. Hate it when it does this. Right, okay. So we can give it a name. So I'm going to say it's on the customers, and I'm just going to go and set its name. So its class name is going to be RC customers 2. So at this time, rather basically, we have got a report control on the screen. Let's take a look at that. And as promised, we've got a report control on the screen. No content, no columns, no anything really, but we've got a report control. So now I'm also going to add a field picker. Now if we go down to our report control now you can see lots of other options all related to it. So basically these are, we can add a new report control, but you can add all the extra options which are related directly to a report control. So now we've got one on the screen, now we can add the extras. So one of which is a field picker. So let's put that on as promised. Let's make that a little wider. Yeah, something like so. Oh. Field picker customers, RQ. That's okay. I'm not going to go into the actions on there. I'll do it here. I think it'd be better. Customers, it's related. So I'm going to say the field picker is related to, and it's a window control, a browse enhancer, or a list enhancer. We're going to go with a window control and the one that we've just added, the report control there. So now we're saying this field picker, sorry, this field picker is related to the report control. Change its class. And a quick, again, there's no columns, but I just want to, for a training point of view, this might be really boring for some, but we will get into some of the more of the latest features of file loading in a second. So there we go. So yeah, so now we've got a field picker and a report control linked together. Next, I'm just going to make sure actually that this window is. Oh no, that's right. Meant to be the X and Y. Default and default. No, centered. Right. Now I'm going to have a look at the report control itself. So we're going to look first off at its data loading. So instead of being manually loaded, it can be data bind, which we covered in the past ones, where we can bind it directly to an ADO data source. I do that sometimes. Yeah, it comes in really handy. We're not going to use it today. We can manually load. Obviously, we've done that many times in the past. You can take the data from a queue, especially like a list control, that kind of thing, or a view/file. So I'm going to choose that. Now, this can be basically a table. It's going to be a table in your dictionary. If it weren't in your dictionary, you use the ADO data source. But this is in your dictionary. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, taking the data, it will write you a view. So it's kind of irrelevant if the data source, the table is or based on a .dat, TPS, SQL, doesn't really matter. You've already got your dictionary set up, you've got your connectivity of that table set up, so we're just going to use one of those tables. So let's add our customers, hence why I've called everything customers. Yep, that's good. Do we want to go through in a particular key, which we could do? The key, excuse the pun, the tip here is if we did need to go through on a key, say for example we'll find all the transactions for a related customer, then you would want to go through a key and you would probably range limit. So you'd have a low value and a high value, which would be basically a customer ID equals for a given field, a given customer. If we're not going to do any kind of range limiting and so on and so forth, which we might do in a second, then what I'd do here is I wouldn't do the key. I'm just going to let it go through sequentially and just basically get all the content of the table, because that's really what I'm after. I just want the contents read and into the report control as fast as possible. I'm going to let the report control do the saving and restoring and the ordering and the sorting for us. So I'm not going to bother with a key. It does require a unique field because every row must have an ID of a unique field. So now I happen to know in our customer table that we've got an auto incrementing key. So that's perfect for it. So we use that as our unique field. If you're using SQL, of course, you could use a filter here. You can do an order, which will be your SQL order by, and a filter. But it's really for the view, I should say. So it's the order of your view, which would be passed to the SQL backend, but it works with TPS, of course. And the same with the filter. For simplicity, we're not going to do that. We will do maybe if we need to in a second, but for simplicity, I'm just going to say I want to go through the customers. I want to go give it a unique value of that. That's enough to start with. We haven't got any join tables yet, so that's fine. We're not going to need any hot fields, but we will cover those just for a talking topic, if you will. And related record. Now you will want to fill this in, because what this does is this tab would be available if it was manually loaded or data bind. The first 3 tabs wouldn't be, but this tab would. And that's because basically, let's say it's manually loaded, you can say when a person clicks on a row that I want you to go off and find a related record or put that data there, basically. The source of it, if you will, or the related source. So basically, as we navigate around our report control, I want it to go and bring this into sync. So I'm going to make sure that it brings our customer into sync. So I'm going to use a customer ID. And I'm going to say the row ID, which we know is already using the customer ID, is there. And last but not least, I think we need to get rid of this prompt. This last one is a unique field. It's really more if you're SQL based. And we could do a display, which we're going to. So just to recap on this tab and this tab alone, if we just notice, if I go manually loaded, the related record is still there. And we could get the data from wherever we want to get the data, but when we click on a row, it's going to go off and basically find a customer record on that key using that field as the row ID. If it was data bound, you'd still have that available to us. Okay, so that's the main thing. It's still going to be available. We're going to be file loaded. So here's the extra tabs come back into play. And then last but not least, we're going to give it some columns. So going to here. This is the equivalent at this point, because we're using a file/view loading. This is really the equivalent of your list box format. So I'm going to say, okay, customer, I'm going to want the name. So name, let's give it a bit of width so we can actually see it. So maybe 150, yep. Going to bring in their country. And let's put in, just for good measure, their telephone number. Okay, let's see what we've got at that point. So as compiling, we've put the data source to file. We've given it, say, go from the customer table, not a particular order, which so it's just going to read it in sequential order. And when we click on a row, we do want it to be basically going finding the other fields of that. So what we could do here, just to prove that it is working, is let's make that a little smaller, and we'll put the let's put the customer address on there. Okay. I'll sort this out in a second from a formatting point of view, because what we're going to do here, we're going to include our hot field. Actually, no, not the hot field. We don't necessarily need to. Okay. So let's spread that out, give them all a default. Oh, they already have all the default. Take a quick look at that. Okay, so it's going and getting the record. There you go, there's one. I wonder if we had, yeah, there's one. That hasn't, yep. So that, what's making this work below is the related record that we mentioned earlier. So basically as we're clicking around here, because they're not hot fielded in, so we don't have the address loaded at this time, but as you're clicking the rows on the report control, the related record is doing its job and issuing it, basically going finding the related record and issuing a display statement afterwards. So it's showing this. Okay. Now we're going to add some more columns to the report control. And we're going to put basically the address in there. So, oops, something like so. But on this, I'm going to have it hidden. I don't want it on the report control by default. I do want it available, but I don't want it on there by default. Same with number 2 and 3 and 4 and the postcode. And what the hidden will do is it will one, it will put it as part of your, sorry, wrong one. It will put it as part of your view statement. So a bit like a hot field, but it's not hot field. It's going to be part of the report control. It's going to be available to it. So it's going to put it in the date picker. Sorry, the field picker. So date picker is a calendar, obviously. Hidden. Did I do that for the third one? I'm sure I did. Yep. And last but not least is the postcode or the postal code. Of that hidden. Okay. Let's take one quick look at that. Into our, yep, we've got that. But now you can see you've got your extra fields in the field picker available to you. So if I did want to bring someone in, so there I would get the Ada Lovelace, and if I was, which is our property, or we will get your postal code. So basically, adding them to the report control, but hidden, basically places them into the field picker by default. Okay. What next? What next? Some kind of use of the hot field. Let's just take a look. Not sure what fields we've got actually. Probably a poor table to do. Yeah, we haven't really got anything. Probably a poor table. I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay. Let's just take a look at our view statement. Okay, that's what we've got there. So we can say, okay, we've got our view on our customers. They're the fields which are all part of our customer table. If it was to hot field, then basically just as it does in Clarion, it will add it to your view statement, your view structure, so that you will be able to act accordingly on that. Tell you what we'll do. We will, let me just look at our data, just trying to think of a good use for it. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the hasn't got the country on it. Well, we'll add. Sorry, we digress a little here. Let's give it some sorting. maybe some grouping, and then we'll tie in some related buttons to it. Okay. Come back to the icons and the hot field in a second. So the grouping and sorting, we're going to give it a default sort, and we're going to put it in the company name order, alphabetical ascending. Okay, so this is why I didn't choose earlier a key, because I just want to get the records into the report control. The report control can then take over and apply its own sorting. And of course, if you did have the save and restore options enabled, and the user could basically go and resort their own data. For example, we take a look at this now. There's our order. Yep, brilliant. And we can sort by postal code. If the save and restore was enabled, we would exit, go back in, and it would restore the sort order, which means we've read them in a particular order, applied them in a particular order for no reason, because the user's selection is going to override ours anyway. So that's the point. We want to get the data in there as fast as possible with filters and range limits and so on and so forth. But I'm not really bothered about the ordering, reading the data in a particular order if I can get away with it, because the report control is going to do its own sorting afterwards. So, okay. Let's call an update form. So now we've got our report control on there. We can come to this. Actually, we're going to tie the report control. It's a little different than you would normally do with the insert change delete buttons of the Clarion control, because on the insert change delete, sorry about that, on the insert change delete of the Clarion control, you specify the update on those buttons. On the report control, you actually specify it on the template. Okay, so we're going to go across here, related update procedure. I think there's already one in this procedure, in this application. Update customers, that's good. We'll call that. In the usual way, you can pass it parameters and get a return value and so on. And again, unlike the Clarion buttons, the insert, change, delete, and view and print, which all take one, basically just one procedure name, you could, if you wanted to, override that procedure for the print procedure and give it a different one. Likewise, if you had a view, you could override it there. If you haven't got one and you wanted to add a view button, it would take the update as a default. It just gives you the ability to have a different form if you're in view only, that kind of thing. So we're going to call update procedure. We've not added any buttons yet. Go on to there, double click. Actually, maybe I do need to add the buttons. Disagree with that, actually. That, I think, is a bug. I should be able to double click at this point and it should call the update. Okay, I'll add the buttons, but we should have been able to at that point do that. Okay, we go down to our report control here. Now we've got the associated controls, one of which is the update buttons. We've got our view button, as we mentioned. We've got a print button, got a select button. All the things you would expect with the Clarion one. Let's add our buttons here. And we associate these, just as we did with a field picker, we associate these with our report control. So it's a window control, and that's our report control there. Options are, we want to add to the right click, we do. We want to disable when basically there's no records, like the change and delete. Okay, now Let's double click on that. Yeah, so now we double click. I really think that should have worked a second ago. So we've got that. And of course we can insert. And just as it would expect with the Clarion, like the Clarion controls, it's going to do all the things. It's going to call the form, insert, change, delete mode, or global request populated for you, and so on. Okie dokie. Let's just update that and put a country in there, because I just noticed it didn't have it, and I just want to demonstrate the hot field. Yeah, so just add country in there. Okay. So just going to put it, yep, UK. So that's in the UK. That's France. Exante is in the UK, and so on and so forth. That kind of thing. Right. Put them as US. Oh, crikey, did I just overwrite one of the records? Yeah, I did. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that out so we don't see it in there. We know that the UK are Exante and Noyantis. Oh, the BBC is definitely a UK institution. Right, so I'm going to take. I'll just do it right there, only because the Clarion seems to be playing up a little on the actions. I'm going to take the country column out. That means it's not going to be part of the view. So we take a quick look at our view again now, and the country's gone. So now I'm going to hot field it back in again. So I don't want it to display, but I do want to be able to use it. So I'm going to hot field in country, I'm going to bind it, and it is in the view. If you're using, say, a filter statement and a variable for a filter, then you would say not in view. Back to our view. The country's there. Brilliant. Just what we're after. And then for the report control, what I'm going to say is I'm going to go to our company name, and I'm going to give it an icon condition. Okay. So I'm going to say there is no default icon. We're going to use the icon. There is no default, but if, and our condition can be if the country equals UK, then it can be check-on.ico, something like that. Put in the, as always, put in the little tilde at the start will automatically compile the icon in for you. Okay. Oh, really, we should have. Let me take that back, because maybe we should have had a default icon. It looked a bit strange without. Sorry, wrong one. I personally have a little icon set up called blank, which is just a 16 by 16 empty icon. Oh, can't find it for this. Let me copy that in. 1 second, everybody. Don't you just hate it when you're desperately trying to find an image and you can't find it? Okay, just going to give it an empty icon. We'll move off this in a second. I think we're nearly there. But hopefully it's been helpful. I know, as I say, Lisa was interested in this. Blank die cut, yep. Compile that in, fine. Plus a little refresher doesn't do any of us any harm now and again. Okay, so as we can see now, we've hot fielded in the country and we're using it as a condition. There. So we've got our little icons just for the UK companies. Customers, I should say. I suppose last but not least is covering the equivalent of a local column, if you will. And all I'm going to do on that is all of these columns so far I've just chose from straight from this the table. So I'm going to call it anything you like. I personally am going to call it LC for local column. I always have LV for local variable. Emails are keeping us busy. LV local variable, LG local group, LQ local queue, that kind of thing. LC local column, and we're just going to put on this the web. Okie dokie. So it's going to be web website. I know there's a variable for this, by the way. So I say it's local column. It's web. These are the various options. I think we've all covered these in the past. Data content. I can't say I've ever tried this, but I'm going to try and put it as a hyperlink. So, yeah, can't really say I've played about with this, but okay, let's try it. Okay, so now we've got a local column defined. If we take a look at what it's done from the source point of view, we can see it's not part of the view. It hasn't affected our view at all, so there's a view. But there is a group structure created for us called the name of our report control _ row data group. Okay, and basically that gets primed up with the required data when it goes to add a row. If you prime up a group and call the add row with a group structure, then it was the fastest way to get the data into the report control. So it's doing this automatically for you, so we don't have to worry about it. And of course, our new local column, LC web, is in there as well. So we've got that in there. It's not going to do anything. So it's just there. Okay, so now I'm going to prime it up. It's probably a poor example of this because we could have just used the one off the actual table, but I'm just demonstrating, what we could do. So now we need to set that. In Clarion Browse, you would use the set queue record embed point. We've got our local group, so we need to basically set row content. So that's our data _ set row content. I'm going to go into here. Sorry, we're going to go back one. I'm going to hot field in. There is a website URL column, which we could have just used that for obvious web URL. We could have just used that, but we're just demonstrating the local. So we've got that available to us. There's our website data. Sorry, I embed data _ set row content. So in here, I'm going to say set web URL. Maybe I'll do it under condition. So if company, no, of course, country, that'll do, equals UK. Then our group, which is defined for us, dot LC equals, and we've got this hot fielded in for us, web URL. Okay, so I'm only going to set that website under condition if it's a UK company. I'm not showing any bias here, by the way. Just trying to come up with scenarios which you might have in your list controls, your report controls. Okay, so now, as agreed, we'll just check Van Gatter de Moor. Yep, it has a website, but it's not loaded because we're only using the local. We can see these, and if we click on that, it's a hyperlink, and off we go, and there's Noyantis. Wow. Okay, so Lisa, hopefully you found that interesting. Hopefully anybody else watching it found it interesting. Any questions on the report control? It's a bit of a recap, as we say, but that's how I would recommend loading it. You can do joins. The joins, they are just a standard join as you would, a custom join, that is so. But I'm not sure what tables we've got in this dictionary actually. Probably chose the, tell you what we'll do. We'll link in the car make to it, which is a bit crazy, but car code is going to be the customer ID. So it's not really realistic in fairness, but just to demonstrate the join. So what we'll do is we will say, we'll join in car makes. Yep, that's good. We'll join that in. And it's going to be the car code equals the customer ID. We'll have it as an inner join too. Personally, that's terrible. They should be named the same, so on and so forth. But putting all the standards aside, that's how we would do a join. So we're going to link the car makes on the car code to the customer ID. Doing that will enable us to obviously hot field or build into the actual report control and so on the columns from the car makes table. So I'm going to bring in the car makes and I'm going to say the name. So car make. Bit of a strange browse this or report control, but it's just to show the basically the idea of the join table. Okay. So they're linked on their record IDs, if you will. Okay, so that's a recap of the report control, and that's basically how I would. That's how I do add our report controls now, and so on. Of course, you would have range limits, as you would expect. Like I said, if you had a list of transactions, then in reality, your report control would be based on a list of transactions. You would probably use a key, and then you would probably use a low value and a high value for your range limit. So, for range limit, the customer, if it's transaction customer ID to the customer ID, that kind of thing. We all know how to do range limits on our browsers. This is no different. And if it's a multi-segment key and you're range limiting on a second or third or fourth part, then you can set the higher parts of the key here. Okay. No questions? That's good. So the only other thing while we're on the report control was in the news groups. I think it was in the database driver and on the Clarion 11 news group. And somebody asked about delaying the loading of the report control. And I've got to admit, I do like the idea, especially if you're going to use it in docking panes and you want to get the, say for example, I know I keep opening this, but it's in dev and it's a perfect example. So I'm going to add the ability for what we're talking about next to the template, and we'll see about getting it out for even this week, because I'm going to add it probably as early as tomorrow. So I'm going to click on here. It's going to open. It's loading the data. It's loading a lot of child data as well for the related record, which is fine, but there was that delay. So I'll just show it again. Let's go back in. Don't worry about that. That is me. That is my app. As I say, it's in dev. So clicking on here, we're going to get that initial delay. Okay. So what would be much better is, yes, we can get a report control on there and the command bar on there and so on, but not load any data and then not load any associated data. Oh, it seems seems this latest version's got a bit of a delay there on that. Wow. Definitely a delay. Okay. So without loading all this associated data, I want to get away from that. So the way I propose is we'll have a delayed load on the report control, which means I'll be able to, we'll do it on staff, get the screen painted as fast as possible, and then populate our data into the report control afterwards. So what I propose to do is, on our report control, there is somewhere thought we already had an option to do with the data loading. Oh, I suppose it's the data source here. Yeah, under the data source. Might not be the place. Basically, introduce an option. Not sure where. It'll be quite an easy option, and it will basically to do with the initialization and the loading, the data loading. For backwards compatibility, the default will be load immediately, which is basically via the particular embed point, which is called for you automatically, data_load. Okay, so that's called, if you ever want to do your own data loading, let's say it's manual, this is the best place to do it. Because if you wanted to have your own button, let's say we have a regular button. I'm going to call it refresh. Okay, and the code for the refresh would be along the lines of I'll see customers because I know what my class name is, dot refresh contents with a true to force it to reload. Okay, so that method would refresh our report control. That in turn would go off and call the report control data load. So that is why it's the best place. If you're going to do any manually loading, that's your best place to put it in. Okay, so the calling of that, currently it's done automatically for you. So I propose I'm going to introduce a new option. I might go under options, might go under data source. I'm not quite sure. I'll play about. And the options will be load immediately. And that's backwards compatibility. That's what you've got now. There'll be another option of load manually, and that will be over to yourself. So it won't call the data load. It'll be really up to you to do the data loading. And then there will be the automatic link to the docking panes. So you'll be able to specify via, is there a third party tab on here? No. For those, we normally have basically a third party tab for certain controls. Command bars has it, docking panes has it, task panel, shortcut bar, and so on. There'll be a third party tab on there. There'll be basically the docking panes, and it'll basically it will tie itself automatically in to the docking pane window manager, which means once the docking pane has opened that particular procedure and has docked it in its pane as the handle and so on, so it's there visually for the user to see, then it will call back to this, give you an embed point, but more importantly, it will automatically call the load at that point. So 3 new options: load immediately, load manually, and load basically load when docked, if you will, for the docking panes. That's if anyone's got any other feedback on those kind of that kind of approach or any ideas, let us know, and I will we'll add them as well. But they're the 3 things that I can think of immediately. Okay, so that change will go in this week. Wow, okie dokie. Any other questions so far? I know we've got a question regarding the command bars. I'm just going to check. Said here, let me open up the mic. So I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. Kiln? Not sure he's got a microphone, but basically, yes, he said he sent an email in to do with the problem on a ribbon bar and command bars. So let's take a look. Just 1 second. Just going to have a quick look here now. Got some emails come in. So what they're reporting is in version no bar in version 3.02. Right, okay. Right. So what we're getting here, basically, yeah, that's in 4.02. Obviously, apart from a different theme, that's kind of irrelevant, to be fair. This looks like to me it's an error in the calculation of the required height. This is on an application frame. It's still muted. Oh, sorry. You're open. Your microphone's open. Okay. Well, we'll wait to see if they've got a microphone. Then, basically, yeah, this is the old version, 3.02 of the template. This is 4.02. It looks like it's on the application frame. When you attach a control to the application frame, our template has to create basically a holding window, if you will, because you can't add all CX controls to the application frame. So we do that. We calculate the height. Now, with it being in ribbon interface, it can have different attributes turned on and turned off. One of which is the equivalent of like a quick access area, if you will. Is the email actually, so is Outlook, and this area here is the quick access, so we can remove from quick access, and that's the ribbon. The command bar supports that, of course, but what you can do is here, show below, and of course you can then put that back. So let me just put that back and put it back. Now what I think is happening there is it's calculating the required height when it's not actually turned on or not needed. It might be set to merge into there and so on, but there are no options. That's what I think is happening. So I can take a look at that. The command bar is already, so the updates the command bar. And it's put, it happens only to the frame windows indeed. And that is correct, yeah. Because when a command bar is in a MDI child window, we don't have to create any kind of dummy window to hold it. The window itself is perfectly acceptable place to create the control on the fly, which is what we can do. Or if you've painted one, then you've painted it yourself. On the application frame, we have to create the window, and it looks to me like there's it's calculating incorrectly. So apologies for that. There has been an issue with that in the past, but I did think it had been put to bed. Looks like this is a pretty simple ribbon to play about with, so I can take a look at that and fixing that. There is an update in progress for the command bars. One is to address the close all pop-ups on the application frame. So one is to address that, and that will come out probably before. Basically, there'll be an interim build with that fix in, and so on. And then another is to look at the loading mechanism and the speed of loading. Now, I've already started on that. I wanted to do that first, and I think we've discussed it in previous webinars. And I started it and stopped it, started it again, so on. I took quite a bit of time on it last week, and I've got to admit it's going to be a lot more complicated than I first thought. The results, if I've got, oh no, don't say I've shut them. Hopefully they're in my book. I wrote down some preliminary results from the loading speed, and I couldn't set all the properties and so on and so forth. But one of the loading speed issues were linked to how I was storing them in the class, storing the creative controls in the class. Now, I got some really promising results by commenting some code out. It wouldn't make it a releasable product, but I just wanted to see if it was worth, where the delay was, and is it worth spending time on that? And it was. I could take I think I had something like a ribbon with 300 controls on it, and I could take the timings down from, 2 or 3 seconds down to 0.3 of a second. It was literally a tenth of the load time. So we've got. I don't know if we'll be able to accomplish all that when everything is back in and working, so to speak. But by commenting some particular code out in the way I'm storing and applying some changes, I was able to help the load speed dramatically, which of course is good for everybody. The faster we can get things painted and get the windows opened, the faster the application looks like it's responding, and so on. Especially in this application here, as we said, so we can see when I go into the list patient, then I'm waiting for the data, so we'll just mention that, but also that report, that command bar does have some actual things built into it. It actually has a report control attached to it, and so on. Don't forget you can do things like that. If you have a look at, say, the day list, and you could have your date picker attached to your command bars. People need to attend the training. But my point being is, the faster we can get this loaded, the less time for the loading, and the windows appear instantaneously, or as near as damn it. And that's what we're kind of trying to achieve, and so on. So when I get the interim build out for the close all pop-ups, which is an application frame issue, when I get the interim build out for that, then I will address this at the same time, this miscalculation. There's already methods in there in the command bar class, calculate OCX height, I think it is, or something like that. The bug will be in there, so I'll get that fixed to you. Okie dokie. I think Alan's got a question. Just let me move here. Our offices are very very efficient, but we don't have light switches, although everything's automated, and I just had to move to get some lights turned back on again. Okay, Alan's got a question on docking pane, and we do have a question on Chilcat regarding HTTPS. So we'll go to Alan first. Hi, Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm trying to get the splitter bar to work, and on the template I have lock splitters unchecked, and I've got splitter style set to real time. I've tried, setting those different ways, but the cursor for the splitter shows, but it won't resize. Am I missing something?
The splitter, what's this on? Is this docking pane, you say, or because there's a splitter
yes,
on?
It's docking pane.
Okay, let me just open up our docking pane example. We're going to one of the previous webinars, although we do run the risk because we've been butchering these in previous weeks, so we better watch for choosing a good example. Okay, just any, not multiple, something like that. So we're talking about that.
Yes. And I had it working before, but yeah, I get the cursor change, but nothing moves.
Oh, okay. The only thing I think would stop that. Where's that example? Simple Clarion controls. Actually, just make sure that the same one on that Clarion controls is the different Clarion controls. So yeah, something like that. So I've just gone into a region. Yeah, so we get definitely the splitter works there and so on. The only thing I think would stop that is if you set the min and max to the same. So let's say I'll go to our pane list. So it's 175, 200. So I think if I said something like the minimum width was 175, the maximum width was 175. Same with this. That's our pane list. I'm not going to compile first. Just want to refresh our. Sorry, not that one. There's our pane list. So we can resize and we can resize, that kind of thing. If I go into that, I've got the cursor, but I can't. Yeah, basically I can't resize it, which is what I would have expected. But that's because I've just basically said your minimum and your maximum are the same. So basically you can't move. Don't even get to move the height now. Should be able to move these. All these are built into it, but I can't move that because it's got a min and max on it. Have you got those settings set?
Yeah, afraid not.
No.
No. I tell you what, I've been. This is a really complicated. It's got like 8 panes on it. I mean, I'm having all kinds of issues. So I'll just keep playing with it. I mean, it must be something I'm set, and I'll check like immediates or whatever on the windows, etc. I thought maybe you'd run into it.
I don't think the immediate should really make much of a difference, I'll admit, because all this is. Oh, sorry, that's the region. All of that is controlled basically from within the docking pane itself. So now we're over at the mercy, so to speak, of the docking pane. So telling me I can't do that and so on. So the immediate, sometimes you do turn the immediate on, but that is for the Clarion control within the docking pane. But for the panes themselves, no, they would be controlled via settings or properties of the docking pane.
That's interesting. All right. Well, I'll keep playing with it.
If you do run up against if you're not making much headway, feel free, drop me a quick email. We can always just quickly hook up and take a quick look.
Yeah, I'll do that as a very last resort.
Well, the offer's there.
Well, no, I appreciate it. I just meant for your time. I appreciate that. For another quick question, you showed. Remember that I had these multiple panes and couple, 3 columns and so forth. And we talked last week about hiding a pane and figured out how to do that. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it to open, get the window to open with a couple of the panes hidden. That is, docked over on the side or collapsed over on the side. But if I set the visible or opened, then my layout gets all screwed up when the window opens. So I'm trying to manually set 2 of the panes to not be open, false.
Oh, sorry, Alan, just 1 second. Sorry, it won't be a second. So someone's just knocked on. Sorry about that. Sorry, Alan.
So basically the question is it seems to be a timing issue. If I try to close two panes after everything's initialized, um, the system crashes. And after a lot of tinkering, I finally came up, well, if I go to a timer loop and loop a bunch of times and then close one of the panes and then loop some more and then close the other pane, they will close without crashing.
What's the content of those panes?
They're Clarion procedures,
windows,
and they're
yeah.
pretty complicated.
Okay. Don't like the idea of the crashing. Don't like that in the slightest.
What I was wondering is there some sort of, I mean, I've tried posting a message back to my main window when these procedures have finished emitting, etc. And even that doesn't seem to resolve it other than just waiting a while.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just thinking then. So we've got the two particular panes. Well, it doesn't really matter, but you've got a couple of panes that you want to hide. Yeah, that where we started. So now you're saying you close them. When you say close, do you just mean like fold back, or do you mean physically close? Because like that's folded back.
Yeah, I want them to fold back, but of course, I mean, I'm still got a little confusion between closing and hiding, but I'm using the set pane opened false, and that folds them back. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to, I would like to have them folded back when the window opens.
Well,
but like I said, if I do that, the layout gets messed up.
Well, you will basically, because imagine these. Let's say those were not there, then the window would open in this style because it's going to take over all the available space, and all of a sudden, with those not there, that the available space is greater, so it's going to take over. So yeah, so if you open them folded back, if you will, for want of a better term, then yeah, the whatever's remaining in that space will gain space.
Okay.
And it will gain by the percentage. So you can see there, basically, that's gone. It's going to take over all of it. If they was located in this, let me just bring those back into play. So if I was to say, okay, put that to the bottom of there. Okay. Now if I fold that back, that's grown. Didn't know whether that, to be fair, whether that one would have grown. I'd have to look at the definitions. But ultimately, if that had a greater percentage than that, they would all grow proportionally. So all of a sudden, so many pixels will become available if this closes or is it folded back. Then, depending on what percentage of that is of the overall height and what percentage of that is of the overall height, they would both grow accordingly to take up the percentages of this additional space. God, it gets complicated, doesn't it? But that's the kind of that's what it is. So basically, let's say that was 500, 250, 250. Then that let's just change those on that example just to try and explain to you what that is. So Clarion is probably that one. Got browse 1, 500, 500 left, so it's 500 height. Browse 2, yep. Browse 3 is to the bottom of browse 1. I'm going to say, okay, that is 250 height, and browse 4 is 250 height to the bottom of browse 3. Okay. Watch it, this will prove me wrong now. Okay, so we've got those opened. Now, so that is only half the height of that in their definitions. 500, 250, 250. If I fold one of them, I'd expect that to grow by a percentage, that to grow by a percentage. And that's just what they've done. Okay, now of course if you have both of those, that's grown by the other percentage. It's 100% of the available space, that kind of thing. So by having these pinned back by default, you are going to, other controls are going to take over that available space by whatever percentage they can get away with, for want of a better term.
All right, I'll just keep playing with that. Okay, the two terms, there's two settings in the template where the pane is visible and open. Those are two different settings. Which one controls which? I mean.
Right. Okay. So let's okay. That's fine, because they probably do conflict a bit with the Kojak help here, I think. So we've got this. One is the auto hide, hide, and one is close. Okay. So we'll go with pane free. Go to its options. No, sorry there. So yeah, so you've got visible and hidden, and I think that is your close button. So if I say it's hidden, oh no, sorry, that's the auto hide. Okay. So pane free should be available to us on the left. No, see, I've got that wrong then, because now I can't get to pane free. Yeah, it's not available to us. So I've got that wrong. So I can see your point. Bit of a rework on that is really required. So it's visible but closed. Ooh. So that's it there. Oh, okay. So that might be one of the things that you've just experienced. Well, I can see
Tried so many different combinations.
Okay. Now, just watching, obviously I'm going to get the crash. Watching, let me open a different one. Watching an area down the left, which is where the pane would be able to fold it back out again. So watching that, I'm going to get the crash, but I can see via the grey here that it is basically folded back. So I think that could well be it's accessing a null. It's trying to access a pane that is folded back, but I don't get it. Should still be able to do it. I can track that bug now, so I might be able to help you out there.
Okay.
You're still going to have the question about having it folded back by default and something taking its space. Mm-hmm. I'm not quite sure. The only way you get around that is to basically have a dummy pane. Have it opened, but with a handle of something that visually there's nothing there. That kind of thing.
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually am using a dummy pane, and it is working. I was just wondering if there was a better way to do this. Okay.
So yeah, because basically you want to retain that space. You just don't want the content in there. That kind of thing.
All right. Thank you much.
But that's good. Well, it's not good, but it's good that you've just highlighted that, because that gives me something to work on. You know yourself, half the battle is recreating it. Then you can trace it back and fix accordingly. So that's really good. And I can see, I don't know if it's coming across on the webinar, but through the colourings, in fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll change the colour theme, and then we'll definitely be able to see it better. Yeah. That wasn't really, still stick with dark, but just go, sorry, Visual Studio, but go to light. Oh. What? What? Okay, yeah, okay, got it. It's not all the time, so as you say, it's probably a timing. But I don't know if you can see from that theme. There's that. There's the other bar, if you will. So that is the other. Wow, it's actually. Yeah, we've got that crash. I wouldn't trust it, but basically, it was there. It was available. That's the thing. So it is folded back. So to answer your original question, which controls which? Sorry, not that. that controls whether it's folded back or not, and that
Hmm.
controls it's closed. So there is a conflict of terminology definitely there. So I'll rework it. I'll make it so it's quite blatant.
What's the purpose of opening it closed, since you're basically closing it after it opens? Or the visible, I mean, hidden. So if you open it hidden, that means you've closed it, right?
No, believe it or not, the object still technically exists, and you could bring it back into play via code if you wanted to.
Oh, okay.
Just to get even more complicated and confusion. But yes, basically, the pane has been defined. It does have a status. It's there. It's in memory. It's got its resources, and you can manipulate its properties. It's just that the user can't physically get to it.
Okay. Got it.
So not the norm. Definitely one of those scenarios where you're thinking outside the box, so to speak. But yeah, it has got the capability to do that. Okay, is that okay?
That's good. You gave me something to work with. Thanks.
No problem. And then, and you were more or less out of time. There was a question regarding Chilcat, and it was to do with it was to do with actually bringing down currency rates. Now it's interesting. A particular person wants to speak to. I think they used Yahoo, and it's stopped the service, and now they're looking at another provider. There is actually going to be a task class added to the Chilcat wrapper to bring down the latest currency rates for you. And just like the SMS, it will support different gateways. There's some free ones out there. So we're going to obviously support those to start with. I think the free plans let you bring down currency up to once an hour, something like that, once per hour. If you want it more frequent, like every second or every minute, then they're usually a paid service. We're going to cover a couple of scenarios, so we will allow for the paid services. It's just up to you to have an account with the particular with the particular providers. But we will support the free providers as well, so you'll be able to get currency exchange rates free of charge, which is quite good actually. A lot of transaction systems now have that. But the question came up. Let me just open up our Chilcat. Examples, Chilcat. Probably a bit hard to actually come up with this one particular example. Tell you what we'll do. We will bring in the help document of Chilcat. There you go. Here's one I prepared earlier. Okay, so they were using the HTTP class, and they wanted to connect through SSL, which is fine. Personally, I think there's better options out there. If at all possible, I would use the REST class because it's better. I use the HTTP for some scenarios like these post, not necessarily post binary, although I have used that, to be fair. And definitely the downloads, so you can download files. Personally, I would tackle it via the REST class. And on there, you would have a connect. So you could pass it there, the port 80 or port 443. Are using TLS and the auto reconnect time. So I would call that first. This is for Jonathan, who's going to be watching it on catch up. So I would call that first with basically the name of what you're connecting to, the particular port, true to basically that. So 443 for the port, the URL, or the base URL as it is, 443 for the port, true for that, and something like 5,000 for the auto connect, 5,000 milliseconds, something like that. Okay, then I would make use heavily of these because that's just what we usually do. We do full request nobody and full request nobody string builder. That basically means you're going to do a request to a URL, so maybe a get or a post with the path. You're not going to give it any particular body, and it gives you the answer back as a string. You're better off, which is perfectly fine. That's good. You're better off using that one though, because you would have full request no body, SB string builder. So again, it would be a get to a particular path, and then you pass it a string builder object, which the base class will create for you. Just tick it on the template, and it will create you a string builder request and a string builder response. So I would pass it the string builder response dot get object. That would pass the object in, and then basically when you get the answer back, it's all going to be contained in the string builder for you, which is great because then you can load that into the JSON if it's a JSON response and pass it all in memory, all in the actual object itself, and so on. Or you could, if it's not JSON, if it's XML, then you can load it straight into the XML class, and so on and so forth. And all these are the Chilcat classes, of course, obviously. So I would definitely recommend using the REST, using the connect, using these requests, and then the disconnect. That is your better option, especially if you're going to be talking to some kind of service where you're going to be going getting something like a currency. Our currency task class will use just these. So they will use these. For example, let me just bring the task class QuickBooks. This is part of our QuickBooks. So just to show, we would have a connect, and we can see, just as I said, this is a task class, but it's still making use of all the other classes like the OAuth and so on and so forth. But we will do some OAuth, we'll do some stuff, and then basically at the end of it, that's probably a bad example, that's not actually, because of the OAuth, but there should be a rest dot. There you go. So at the end of that, yeah, after all that, there's the OAuth up there, so on and so forth. At the end of all that, we would call rest connect to the base API. Just a second specified a minute ago, to a base API 443 for the port, true for the SSL, and that's a bit keen on that, to be fair. Okay, so we'll call it connect. Then I would call something along the lines of full request. So on one of our downloads, so let's have a look at a download account. I've got a thing called read, and what I would do there is I would, I'm making use of a JSON class as well, but I would have my request clear content. I'd have a string builder response clear content. I would build up the REST header, so maybe REST clear headers, clear query params, add a header should you need it, which you normally do, to be honest. And you can see here that just the one I specified a minute ago. It's a full request, no body string builder. I'm doing a get. I'm doing it to basically a path. So that's the path there made up of sort of various elements. And I'm passing it my response object. So the string builder object dot get object. And that will give me the answer back in the string builder response. I can then do things with that. So I know it happens to give me a JSON response, so I can check my response code from the REST, which you would want to do, by the way. So you'd want to be checking, are you not a 200? Then you've got some kind of error. Only because this service doesn't include 300 for redirects and so on and so forth. So basically, as long as I've got my response 200, which I'm happy with, then I can say, okay, I've got my string builder, my JSON class, and I'm going to load it from the string builder, which of course I've now just been populated automatically for me. So I can load that from our response object into our JSON class, into our JSON object, and I can go and pass the object accordingly. So we've covered that very, very quickly, the whole subject on that. But to answer the question which was emailed in, well, yeah, that's what I would do. I would use the REST class instead of the HTTP class. I'd use connect, full request. Let's move that out of the way. Full request, no body string builder, or if it does have a body, that one full request string builder, and that basically is very similar to the this one, except you do build a body. So you pass it a get or a post or a put or whatever the verb is or the action, the path that you're going against, and then you're going to pass it a string builder request and get the answer back in a string builder response. Which means you can build your JSON up in the request to start with, have it all populated, or your XML or whatever your content is, build it all up in there, pass it as just one parameter, get the answer back as just one parameter, and then you can load that into whatever it is, the JSON, the XML, whatever you need to do, and get the answer straight out of that. Sounds very complicated. Take a step back and follow it step by step. It really can be quite simple. It's as simple as you want to make it, but it can be quite simple. Right, that puts us on 1.5 hours, which is spot on time. If there's no any other questions, don't see there's any other questions. No, cool. Right, okay, then we shall wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, and until next week. Okay, thank you.